So the tree is effectively free of the power line. It's got a favorable lean either way, so it's going to go the right direction no matter what I do. But cable for a safety, and I made a call to the cable TV company, and they came and put the line right down right here. So I really don't have to do much except for put that tree down and have it not leave the stump and hit that fiber optic cable. So yet again, the thick hinge concept will keep that tree from leaving the stump and hitting that line. So yet again, an overly thick hinge, or too thick with a hinge on the barber chair like I wanted to right there. But in this case here, I don't care about the quality of the tree. I just want it down, but I want the stump to be attached so it doesn't fall off and hit the cable, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to buck this tree up, and then when they get that cable up, I'll clean up the stump. I don't want any chance of damaging that carbon fiber. Have a couple of videos I want to do today in my goofy horn rim shop glasses. Probably got to get the grease on them before I can see anything. And a couple of things that I do in the videos, and I keep telling myself I need to break them out so that they become a separate how-to video in of themselves. And I just seem to find ways of Not letting that to happen. So today I want to rectify that. I think it's funny, I bought a whole set of these. I've already misplaced them. Hey, like that. And there it is. Yes. But I've got enough that I can do what I want to do today. So, first, I want to show how to disassemble and reassemble the chain brake. All right. And I'm going to run a quarter cable impact wrench. The thing is a couple of years old. It's been sitting around the shop. And, you know, I've come to the conclusion if I don't use it, it's just going to sit there and collect dust and rust. And it's actually quite a little powerful machine. It does a good job. You got to be a little careful. It'll over torque things. So I will try to be a little bit restrained. So obviously the first thing I got to do is remove oh man, look at all that stuff. I better bring that outside and get rid of the... I'm going to have to sharpen that chain too. I think we'll do that. I want to make a point though, is you see me do an awful lot of noodling. You see how that gets all packed up in there? So that also tends to hold heat in the saw. And that's not good. You don't want that heat in there. So keeping it clean means the bearings and stuff last a little bit longer. Because every time you take a system like that and let it stay there and build up a lot of heat, that means that the bearings are also going to run hot too, especially on a saw like these where you have the external sprocket, internal clutch. So all that heat is being held right there by the case. And so you want to make sure you keep that clear. I did not. And that's not going to help the life of this machine, me doing what I did there. So anyway, so I have to go get a couple of bits and pieces here. I also have to go blow this off. So camera's getting turned off for just a second. Well, true to form, I've got to do this all over again because I didn't have the camera on. So we're going to start out by removing the clutch like we did. You got to take this guide plate off, and then the 4 screws which take off this particular cover right here. See now that band, it can squeeze a little more. That means that spring right there is not under a lot of tension. So what I'm going to do is release these 2 springs. And when you release these things, it's best to put a towel or something on there. So when they start zinging around, you trap them. So I'm going to basically just pop that one out. So he's out. And that allows me to rotate the handle a little bit so that that cam can go into the recess, which makes it easier to get that one out. You see there's like those little bumps in there. That cam goes down in there, and that takes a lot of pressure off of that. Take out the cam, that little plastic box and spring, and now what I can do is take off the handle. You notice these are stepped screws. That's pretty common to the 500 series. I'll make sure this is still recording. I'm going to take off the other side. Another stepped screw. Now at this point you can pretty much take off the rest of the stuff. What I'll do is I'll take off the band right there. You just take a screwdriver right under that point there. There's a spot for designed for that. Peel it right out. And then for me, it's easier to start on the other side, pick it, and I guess the little top hat comes right out. Notice they have these top hat bearings, and now this is ready just to come completely off. And now we're down to bare cases. Well, at least bare cases for the chain brake. And there's a couple little features here. Let me see if the camera's still where I want it to be. Notice that I have the clutch drum out yet again, and the reason is simply to allow the chain brake band come a little closer, which means it takes more tension off this spring, so it's easier to work with. Now you have a little piece of plastic right there, and what that's designed to do is to keep the spring, when it's going back and forth, from wearing into the case. So make sure you have that in there. Don't forget that. When I do my cases in the turkey roaster, I pop those out. Sometimes I forget to put them back in. So video is a way for me to remind myself. But make sure that piece of plastic is right there. This pin right here is effectively an axle. It's an axle for that cam, but also this one. And if that's wobbling in there, by the way, that's one of the reasons why chain brakes will fail. That pin will oval out the hole in the case and won't hold it well. And there's really no good fix for that other than possibly, you know, somebody with a TIG who can weld and you can re-drill the hole, set that in there, maybe epoxy. But when that axle, that pin starts wobbling in there, that thing's ruined. It's hard to fix. So let's not dwell on the negative, dwell on the positive, and let's put this thing right back together, put it together the right way. So for me, I guess the best place to start, get these top hats back in the handle. All right, still in there. Good. So I got the two top hats in the handle. And I start, knowing that I've got to put the band through the slot right here, I start by taking the handle, going to the other side and hooking it onto the post. Approximately. Right? Put it right about there. Set this band right through that slot. Right? And then well, get it on the axle and get that on there. Now at this point in time, you might as well just put the screws right back in. You know? So I'm going to do exactly that. Now I don't rattle these. Don't hit the rattle, it'll strip them right out. The other one in. I'll tighten them by hand a little bit afterwards. Just get them in. So now you have your handle on. You've got the band roughly in place. Now take the band and shove it in there. And you see this little T down here? Make sure it goes back into its spot. Now oftentimes, you can just take that and shove it right in with a screwdriver. Most of the time you can. And also, on a lot of the cases, this one here is a little bit ruined, but there's little bumps out here, and that band has to go past the bumps. Something you got to pay attention to. Now notice that with the band contracted in towards the clutch, there's not a lot of tension on that spring. So what I'm going to do now is put this cam back in. Goes just like that. See how it fits there? And if you look careful, you'll see an indent right here. So you get that where the cam falls into the indent. And that has to be loose for that to happen easily. And then you can take this little spring block and set it right in there. Just put it in your fingers. I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to put that there. I guess I'm going to use a little bit more. All right, so I was able to push that in with a screwdriver, just basically push in and release and let it pop down in there. So now the spring is up against the cam, the block is into the case. And really the only thing we need to do now, I'm going to tighten this by hand. I'm just going to get this right. So that's tight. And that one's tight. So now we're into the final stretch. Now, since that band can relax, we want that spring with as little tension on it as possible to make it easy to set it right in there. And what I do is I take the screwdriver and I shove it in the spring on the first you dog. I put it on that first coil in. That usually gives me enough leverage with the screwdriver to make sure it goes all the way in. Once you've got that cam on the axle, the little cam on top of the first one, and spring in here, and this spring, immediately put this on. They do bottom out, by the way. Is how you put together a chain brake for not just 575, but 576 and 570 and 572 for sure. Now once that's in there, see how you reset the brake? It opens up that band. Now I can go back and set the clutch in there. I want to see if this is the right clutch. Yeah, it is. Now, done this a bunch of times too. If you look in there, you'll see the little worm gear, right? The slot right there sets right down on the worm gear. It's pretty easy to find. And once you get it in there, kind of rattle it back and forth. Here it kind of rings. That's how I know I got it. Nice Oregon branded sprocket. And let me just get this put in. So that's right there. Now, let me see if it'll, I think this is run out of gas. Pretty sure it's run out of gas. I would say that it's run out of gas. While I'm here, let me check that fuel line. Actually, I think what I want to do is cut some of that fuel line off. One thing I've been noticing is when it gets down towards the bottom of the tank, the saw begins to go a little lean. And there's a lot of reasons why I can do that, but yeah, that actually sits a lot better. That'll actually sit right in the bottom. Imagine that. So, I mean, I ran this thing right out of gas. So there's an awful lot I do that I just never put on video. And the job I was doing with this particular saw was blocking up big old pine tree. It was about maybe 60, 70 foot of pine that I had to block up and then noodle so I could split with an axe. And while we're on this saw, I gotta see if I can get this thing out of there. There it goes. I want to put another clip on this cover. Yeah, that'll work. See if I can find a clip around here I can shove right in there. Here it comes. There we go. Now we have a clip. We are a little bit further ahead than we were before. Notice that air filter is getting pretty dirty. And this saw has been running good. The more I run it, the better it gets. So, just out of curiosity, I think I'm going to do is turn off the camera. And I'm going to blow off that air filter, and then we're going to check the compression and see if the compression has come up a little bit, because when we first started this project, that compression was 130 pounds. And I think we got it up to about 140. Camera off. All right, we continue. Move this over just a little bit. Now, what I want to do on this saw is first move my stuff out of the way so you can see the saw. I want to check its compression. And we'll probably get it to start. Now, before I go too far, I got to remember to put that guide plate back on, right? Let me just make sure these are still tight. Don't know why they wouldn't be, but they are. Just checking. Now what I do, back on, and then you have this one little screw right here to hold it on. One of the things I've seen on these, actually all the way back in the 372, is if that plate is bent a little bit, sometimes the oil will get pushed back in behind the plate, even though that rubber is supposed to hit up against the bar. See that little oval? See how that is away? Sometimes you'll see the oil come in behind the plate, and you go, my God, the thing's not oiling. Well, it is. It's just going in behind the plate. Just something to look out for. All right. I put another clip on. Now, I think what I'm going to do on this saw, I think I'm going to get rid of the decomp. It's just not that high a compression saw. I think what I want to do is plug that. See if I got a plug laying around here somewhere. And then we'll check compression on this saw, and then I have a debug to do, so I'll check the compression on the next saw on the list, which is an old 371. I don't like the way this is coming out. I hope this doesn't turn to be one of those jobs where you get into it and realize you have a can of worms, like a strip thread or something like that. Man, I've seen that happen too many times. Almost looks to me like it was bleeding out compression alongside this thing. Which might be why it was running a little bit low. Yeah. You can get this out and you'll be able to get a better look at it. In here, bud? Yeah, doing a video. What you got? What you got going?
I brought Had to go down and buy Mary a new level.
A new level?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I stopped over and borrowed hers so I could level up the shooting shack up there. And on the way back, I dropped it off the tractor and ran over it.
It happens.
Of course. It always happens when you don't want it to.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I got everything just about done on that tractor. I just gotta get I ordered a 3-way 33-degree flare to pipe fitting. It's got a screw in there, but I gotta take the battery bracket off in order to put it on there. But I got the hose. I had the floor pan off, so I ran the hose up underneath the floor pan, and
it's a good looking plug, right? A little bit rich, maybe. A little dark. I always run them dark. What I wanted to do on this is I wanted to do a compression test. You know how right where you have your stand?
oh, they're in that one now.
No, I need to bush hog that.
The far half of it there that you haven't mowed.
No, the center field.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean, it's a mess. That one in the side hill. If this goofy weather keeps doing what it's doing, I'm thinking I'll just hook on and do that because I can't really trust the weather to do hay.
Not for another couple of weeks, I don't think. It's raining like every 2 days.
Yeah.
We'll get it. It'll break, and we'll have a week or 10 days, and it'll be right in the middle when you got 100 other things going on.
No. 2 or 3 other things that are a big pain in the ass.
Right, of course. Why would it be any other way?
Don't know. All right, I'm gonna get this.
All right, I'm out of here. See ya.
Yeah, we'll see ya.
I'll get that. The veil's supposed to come in this week, and then I'll get that hooked up, and then that'll be all set to go. So, you have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Look at that. We are now over 150 pounds. I want to be 160, 175, so we may end up having to put a pop-up in there. But just by running it, we went from 130 to about 140 with the no base gasket build. And I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 tanks of gas later, we're at 150. So that's why this saw is picking up power. It is simply the more we run it, that ring is reseating to the cylinder. I like that. 150 is good. I like that. And that plug is a little dark, but you see, I like running them a little bit fat. It's not a race saw. And what'll happen is if I'm like this in the summertime, it'll lean right out in the fall. So this saw is really turning into a good saw. I like it. So let me put it back together. And I like the fact that now I have clips for all 4 corners. And this can go right back in the truck. Get the bar and chain back on it. No, I used this quite a bit this last weekend on pine. See, I think that was leaking. See how black it is around the base? I think it was going right through the threads. Yeah. So I'm going to toss that one. And I'm going to sharpen up this chain, but I'm going to do it by hand. I'm not going to do it with the grinder. Get the bar and chain back on it. Make sure I don't have a burr. No burr. These X-Tough bars are really wearing well. And you can tell I've pinched the crap out of them with trees and stuff. I bore cut all the time. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. One of the things I like about this series of saw is simply that external sprocket, internal clutch, which makes it a lot easier to put the chain and stuff like that on. You know, the 24-inch bar on this saw is handy. It's a handy size. So it may not be the best saw I've ever owned. We're not going to go that way, but it's a good saw. It's a good running saw, and it's beginning to prove its worth in the sense I'm getting work done with it. So what else could you possibly want? You know, it's a little bit of a gas hog, I think. Although the last time I ran it, I guess the last 2 times I ran it, I ran out of gas before it ran out of gas. So maybe that's beginning to change too, that it's beginning to break in, you know. Now I'm going to say this one time, and it's going to create an argument, but I don't think you should have the chain any tighter than that. Now a lot of guys will say, oh, you got to pull it to where you can put a quarter underneath it. That's too tight. It's got a little snap. What I'm going to do is you got to make sure the bar is all the way up, right? And crank on it. And I need to be able to have that chain move easily. Maybe a little tighter than that. Yeah, just like that. This is how I like to have the chain. And there has to be virtually no resistance right there. And notice it's not hanging below the bar, but I've got, probably 3/8 of an inch if I pull it up tight. So look at that, how easy that is. And that's the key. Because if that shows resistance and that chain is really tight, it's pulling really hard on that PTO side bearing. And I have a hunch that the 572 that I'm waiting for parts on suffered its fate because the chain was run too tight. You know, I'd seen bearings go on those. There were some bad bearings. Then when you put bearings in there, they would last. But I'd never seen them have a case come out like that before. So one of the things I do, I got this saw in the shop, is I want to make sure that things are tight. You know, just run on the block and just make sure nothing's loose. Especially muffler. You know. Well, I got to start the saw, right? That's kind of an unwritten rule in my videos. Something has to be running at the end. So let's see how long it takes to get this one started, because it was running completely dry. I mean, it was completely dry. See how long it takes to get it fired. Shut it off, and yeah, this saw is ready to work. All right, so what I'll do is I'm going to tag this onto the end of the 572 video, and And this is the beginning of a new project. Basically, this saw came in and it's apparently dead. So don't know how dead, but it says it's dead. Feels like it's got compression. So let's just see what we have here. Start out by checking basics. That looks nice. Right? And